And so then we're looking at how far we've gone, and we start like getting kind of wound up in a spiral of shame and thinking, I should be further. I should be further along. I should be unstuck by now. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I started this episode 2 weeks ago and then felt like the Lord nudging me to table it. I did a total audible and did a complete different podcast. And then I started this podcast episode this afternoon and my camera died. And then I tried starting it again. And a million other things have transpired. And I'm like, man, this must be an episode that's going to set somebody free, because otherwise there wouldn't be this much resistance coming against it. So this is episode number 418, where I'm going to talk to you about being grateful for what you have accomplished in business already. Okay, listen. So I was going to record this 2 weeks ago. And when I was sitting down, I was looking at the notes. I felt like the Lord was saying, and I want you to pause on that, Jennifer. Instead, I want you to record another episode about the idea of like, stop feeling guilty for taking care of yourself. And that's episode 416. If you have not listened to that, I want you to listen to it, because man, I have gotten some of the greatest feedback, you guys. Thank you so much just for when you guys message me and you're like, thank you, Jesus, that you did an audible and you completely did that episode because it was just for me. Like well, we all need encouragement. Can I just say that? It doesn't matter at what level you are or in business and how great it looks like your life is going. Like, we all need encouragement. And so when you tell me that something resonates with you and it makes a difference and it's making a shift and somebody else is being impacted by it, like, that is a difference maker for me. And my love language is words of affirmation. So I just want to say thank you. If you haven't listened to the episode, when I'm talking about taking care of yourself and self-care, this has nothing to do with like pedicures. Okay. So I want you to go listen. I talk about how I've started traveling a lot by myself and why, and kind of some of the things Jason and I are doing to calm Jen the heck down. And that is a quote. So there's that. Also, for the couple of you who have sent me a DM and you've said, I am loving your podcast in 2024. I love that you left precious Jen behind in 2023. Like, thank you. Thank you for noticing. So I appreciate it. Okay. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about being really grateful for what you've already accomplished in your business, because I know those of you who are women in business right now are listening to me. Like, I know you. Okay. I am you. I know you. I know that what happens is you're constantly looking at like this 5 miles down the road, and I need to get this done and this done and this done. And you've got 43 things that have to be done before noon. And you're constantly like playing catch up. You feel like you're behind 8 ball. You feel like you can never get enough things done. You're saying to yourself, I just need a mini me. Am I right? Like, tell me if you're watching on YouTube right now, let me know in the chat below if I'm right. And so you end up seeing just like this 5-mile to-do list of things that you still want to get done in your business, goals that you have, accomplishments that you want to be doing. And so often as entrepreneurs and business owners, we fail to like stop, pause. I was going to say stop, elaborate, and listen. Wait, so we fail to stop and like turn around and see like the 10 miles we've already come, the 5 miles we've already come, the 50 steps we've already come. And I think that's honestly just how a lot of very driven entrepreneurs are wired. We're constantly looking at like, what's next? What's ahead? What can I do next? I can remember, you guys, being in the middle of triathlons when I was triathloning in my 40s. And I would be in the middle of a triathlon and I would already be thinking ahead to the next one. And it's like, sometimes it's just really hard for me to be in the moment, and especially to sit in the moment anytime that it's like a celebration or like, remembering how far the Lord has already brought me. Does that make sense? And I guarantee a lot of you are the exact same way. So when it comes to being in business, the comparison trap is so dangerous, because it really makes us forget how much we've already done in our business. And instead we start, comparing it to Susie Q over here and Sally over here. And we're looking at how far they've gone and how they've gone, way further than we have. And everything looks hunky-dory and like unicorns and Lucky Charms. And that's from the outside, of course, right? And so then we're looking at how far we've gone, and we start like getting kind of wound up in a spiral of shame and thinking, I should be further. I should be further along. I should be unstuck by now. And so I want to tell you what happened that made me decide to do this podcast episode. That I told my team I wanted to do this. Okay. So Facebook memories is one of my favorite things. You guys about Facebook. I mean, there's so much crap on Facebook, but the best thing I think Mark Zuckerberg ever did, #thank you, Mark, is putting in Facebook memories. So I do a couple of things every day. Number one, I go into the Facebook memories for me on my personal Facebook, and I screenshot anything that for the last 15 years that has to do with our children. And we have a family group chat, where all 6 of us are, and I post the pictures there. Just to remind my kids, like, oh, remember when we did this? Remember when we did that? And sometimes it's only my husband that's like, thank you for the pics, Mom. Nudge, nudge, kids, tell your mother thank you. But, it's fun. It's just fun to go down memory lane. The other thing that I do, and if you guys ever want me to do a whole podcast on this, let me know. Send me a DM on Instagram. If you're just listening to this, if you're watching this on YouTube, just put it in the comments below. But I go into the memories of my business page because I've also been on Facebook as a business for the last 15 years. And I use a lot of the content from the memories there to post today. It makes life so much easier. If you want me to let you know my strategy on that, I would be happy to do that. Just let me know if you want a podcast on it. Okay, so I'm looking at my Facebook memories. All right, this is what happened. Looking at my Facebook memories, and I get something that popped up from 2016. And I was looking, this is in December that this happened, by the way. So, that was December 2023. So it was 7 years ago. And it was a precious Facebook memory of the day I started my podcast, the Jennifer Allwood Show. And instead, here's what should have happened. I should have saw that Facebook memory and been like, oh, I have been podcasting for 7 years. Oh my gosh, look at me. What a stud Can I call myself a stud or is it a studette? I don't know. Good for me for being consistent. Look at me that I have stuck with this for 7 years. Good job, Jen. I should have been high-fiving myself. And it should have been like a moment of pride and not like, gross pride, but just like, hey, I did that. I'm proud of me for sticking to it because there's a lot. Listen, did you know only 1% of the people ever get past 3 podcast episodes when they begin to start podcasting? It's something crazy like that. Now I'm wondering if that's accurate. Is that an accurate? Let me think. Is that an accurate statistic? Oh, now I'm going to have to double check myself. I don't want to lie to you. But anyhow, it should have been a moment of pride, whatever the statistic is. But instead, there was all this comparison and almost a feeling of shame that crept in. I'm going to tell you why. Okay. So I recorded my first podcast episode, the Jennifer Allwood Show, back in December 5th of 2016. I had no idea what I was doing, you guys. We had somebody in New York City that was on the other end that was helping me with all the tech. Zoom wasn't used like it is today. It was really hard and clunky for a girl that liked to paint to finally start podcasting. And it was at the suggestion of one of my coaches. They said, have you considered a podcast? I said, I have not. They said, you like to talk. I said, actually, I don't. I'm an introvert. They said, yeah, but you have a lot of things to say. I'm like, tell my family that. Tell the people I live with that on occasion I have smart things to say. And so they convinced me to start a podcast. What I actually love is that I, in turn, have, convinced women in my mastermind to start a podcast. So I love that. So that was over 7 years ago. Okay. So, but what happened was I saw that Facebook memory and I'm like, oh, I've been at this 7 years, but instead of feeling pride, my first thought was to do math. I instantly did math and thought to myself, we're at 6.5 million downloads, which means that I haven't even had 1 million downloads a year. As I say that out loud, you guys, it almost makes me want to get teary because I am embarrassed. Instead of feeling pride that my podcast has been downloaded 7 million times almost. My first thought was gosh, it should be more. My first thought was it should be more. My second thought was bummer. And then I started thinking, I wonder if my podcast is even still worth doing. Literally, I messaged my team, you guys. Should I even continue this? Oh my gosh. It's like I saw something that should have been good and celebrated. And instead, in my own brain, I twisted it to, yeah, but I should be here. I should be there. Should be whatever. Never mind the fact that I was consistent. Never mind the fact, it's the top 3% of podcasts of all time. Top 3%. Forgetting about those of you who do listen and you come back week after week and you send podcast episodes to your friends and family, then they start listening. Like, I instantly went to this place of, gosh, it should be different. It should look different. I should be further ahead. I instantly compared myself to the people I know who have had 10 times the podcast success that I have in less time. Like, I know people who have 1 million downloads in a month, and I'm just trying to get 1 million in a year. And so I literally had to force myself to have like a come to Jesus meeting in my brain. I literally had to force myself to stop. And I had to like reframe it in my own brain because I was going to spiral. And I'm sharing this with you because some of you are in the midst of doing this today about your business, or you just did it last week, or you are about to, okay? So I had to reframe all of the numbers that I was looking at because when I did the math, I felt not good enough. And here's what I had to do. I had to remind myself, Jennifer, 6.5 million times somebody has pushed play and listened to you speak. Like, that's a lot, you guys. 6.5 million is a lot. And I had to remind myself, over 1,800 of you, for some reason, God bless you. Am I going to start crying at this podcast? I hope not. But over 1,800 of you have gone and you've left a review on my podcast at some point. And that makes me feel bad because I don't even go leave people reviews on their podcast. And I'm such a proponent of like reaping and sowing. And I believe the biblical concept of reaping and sowing. And so I'm like, if I want podcast reviews, I need to go be reviewing other people's, right? Like, because I will get back what I give. And so I look at that and I'm like, over 1,800 of you have taken the time to go and just leave a review. And that means so much because so here's the thing, like there's no way of people who have a huge podcast. There's no way for them to know how many downloads I've had without me just telling them a number. But what happens is they can look at my reviews and they can see, okay, this person's only had 5 reviews on their podcast. It must be a newer podcast, or they don't have, that many downloads. They don't have that many listeners, or the opposite of that is that I have 1,800. I feel like that's really good, you guys. And so then I stop and I think, okay, how many of those faithful podcast listeners have then become faithful clients? And how many of those podcast listeners have taken the time out to DM me and they've told me about how the podcast changed something in them, shifted something in them? I think about the precious women who have messaged me or emailed me and said, I use your podcast to put my baby to sleep at night, which always cracks me up. I'm like, hey, if I can help with putting your little baby to sleep, I am happy to do that. But why is it that our first instinct often is to think about what numbers I haven't met yet? Why do I go there? Why do you go there? Right? And here's one of the things that I know. This happens, you guys, when we as humans and as business owners, we become more concerned with the width of our calling, the width of our business, the width of our impact than we do the depth. When we are more concerned with going wide than we are going deep. And I felt a real deep, holy conviction that day. Because I'm still thinking of how much further I have to go and how many more subscribers I want and how I'd love to be over 2,000 reviews and I'm forgetting, okay, 6.5 million times somebody has listened to me. 1,800 times somebody has said, great job, Jen, or the couple that have said not so great, whatever. And if I'll stop and I'll think, okay, do I actually need more subscribers or do I just need to impact more the ones that I already have? Because the whole kingdom of heaven, the whole way that the Lord works, it's like the upside down world, right? It's everything's inside out. It's like if you want to go high, you got to go low. If you want to have more, you got to give more, right? It doesn't make sense a lot of times. And so when I think about, my impact, I'm thinking it needs to go to more people. But I wonder how often if I just need to go deeper with the ones that I already have and stop looking at how much further I need to go and instead look at how far I've come and how deep have I went and am I currently going and could I possibly go in the future? Listen, I hope that this is ministering to somebody's heart today. And if you're not in business, I'm going to give you another example. And this is the 2024 Jen that's being really vulnerable, okay? This is the 2024 Jen that's no longer as precious as she thought she was. Okay, I'm going to give you another example if you're not in business. So I have at least 10 pounds right now that I want to lose, and it's irritating the heck out of me. You want to know why it's irritating the heck out of me? Because last April, I was like, this is the heaviest I've ever been in my life. The absolute heaviest. And I can look back and see, I'm an emotional eater, and we'd had a really rough couple of years with Ari, with Jason's accident and surgeries. And, you know, it's when Jason and I look back in the last, let's just say 4 years, it has been the hardest and yet the most beautiful at the same time. We have had the most challenges and also the most blessings at the same time. It's been both and, okay? So there's all sorts of reasons why I was the heaviest I've ever been last April. And I was like, I have got to take off this weight. I've gained 35 pounds. Well, I've already lost 20-something of it. I've lost 20-something. But it's taken me since April. It's been very slow. And all I keep focusing on is what I still need to lose. And it's so easy for me to get on the scale and be like, I just want to kick something, and I want to eat a ho-ho at the same time. I want to spit nails. I've got another 10 to 15 that I want to go. And I forget, okay, girl, you are 52. You are post-menopause. And you've already taken off 20 plus and did it in a healthy way. Like, kudos to you. But I think our human nature is we're always wanting more and looking at what we have not done yet. So I want to share a couple things with you, okay? If this resonates with you at all today and you find yourself always doing the same thing, thinking how much further you should be, how much more you should have, what you should be accomplishing. Here's what I know to be true. There's a saying that a grateful heart is breeding grounds for miracles. And I love that because I want to retrain myself, and I want you to retrain yourself to whenever I'm thinking, yeah, but I should, to pause and be like, yeah, but I've already. And to really like look and remember and see how far the Lord has already brought me and all the work that I've already done, both to get to 6.5 million downloads and to lose 20-some pounds, right? I have this sign on my desk that I wanted to share with you. It literally says, here, I'll share with those of you that are watching me on the YouTubes. You can see it. Handy dandy. That says, I still remember when I prayed for the things that I have now. I can remember when I was just starting that podcast and praying that somebody listen and praying that I would have the ability to stick with it and that I would be consistent. I can still remember when I was, asked the Lord, help me to lose this weight last year. And I've lost a good portion of it. I was also, let me give you one other example for those of you that are not in business and don't need to lose weight. This morning I was doing my hair. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see my hair right now. And some of you have followed me long enough. You remember when I lost, I would say 3/4 of my hair back in 2020, right before COVID hit. I think there were a lot of things that came into play as to why I lost my hair, but I know that I was trying to grow it back. The Lord was very good to me. It was coming back, and then I had COVID, and COVID hair loss is a very real thing. It was a different hair loss than what it was in 2020, but it was still a very real thing. I think it was 2022, maybe 2021. I don't know. But anyway, but my hair is still trying to make a comeback. Okay, so if you're watching me on YouTube right now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, your hair looks good. Listen, friends, when I tell you that to get my hair to look like it is right now, I'm having to poof and back comb and use sprays and creams and gels. I can remember 4 years ago when my hair was so thick that I would go and get my hair done sometimes and they would thin it, you guys. That's how much hair I had. And it was just wild all of the time. And so it's easy for me to look in the mirror right now and just think, gosh, I want my 4-year ago hair. I want my 5-year ago hair. I want the hair of my 40s back. Instead of looking, okay, in 2020, if I look at a picture of myself, if you go to my Instagram right now, you know how there's highlights? There's all those round circles. I have a whole highlight on hair loss. When you look at my hair from 4 years ago to where it is today, all I need to be saying is thank you, Jesus. But instead, today I'm doing my hair and I'm like, gosh, so it's still not what it used to be. And man, I can remember when I prayed for it to come back, and it has to a huge degree. And also, if you're someone who's experienced incredible hair loss, first of all, big hugs to you. It is so devastating as a woman. I had no idea. I think that what I would have thought, and forgive me for this, but I think I would have thought, well, it's not that big of a deal. It's just hair. You can get a wig, you can wear extensions. Listen, it is a very big deal. The Bible even talks about a woman's hair being her Crown and Glory, something along those lines. There's a couple things that have helped me tremendously. One is these biotin gummies. If you just Google Jennifer Allwood Amazon store, it'll come up. There's a folder for hair. There's biotin gummies, and then there's like this Moroccan hair oil that I've been using at the suggestion of one of my mastermind ladies, and I think that's helping too. And then the products that I'm currently using to wash and condition my hair in there. So that's a total side note, because I know many of you will message me. But I love that saying from Joyce Meyer, pivoting back to our topic here, but Joyce Meyer has always said, like, I may not be where I want to be, but thank God I'm not where I used to be. And my challenge to you today is for some of you to look at your life and your business in the exact same way. Some of you need to really just pause for a moment. And I know you're thinking, I've got so far to go, but look, you've come so far, right? And I think sometimes we get so focused on that 5-mile vision that it's almost easier if we can just focus on the 5 feet in front of us instead of the 5 miles we still have yet to go. So I hope that this ministered to someone today. I'm so grateful for you guys, for you listeners. I am. And forgive me for being like, is it even worth it with 6.5 million downloads? Forgive me for that. And I hope that this episode serves as a reminder to you about the difference that you're making, and in your business too. Your consistency matters. How you steward the platforms that God has given you matters. How you steward the avenue. Did I just say steward? How you steward the avenue that God has given you to get your message out to the world. It matters. Your faithfulness to show up every day and day in and day out, even if work is not going like you want it to, even if you think you should be further along, it matters. Your impact, even if it seems small to you right now, any impact is impact. One of the last podcast episodes I did is called The Ripple Effect. Please go listen to that. If you're thinking you're not making any difference, you are. You are. We are. And we're showing up every day, dang it. And there is something to be said for that. There is something to be said for showing up and doing the work, because there are so many people still sitting on the couch, still dreaming about starting a business, still dreaming about doing something different, still showing up at a job they hate every day. Life is going by them at warp speed. But you and I were doing something different. And I just want to high five you, and I'm going to receive that high five back. I just want to encourage you today. Stick with it. All right. It matters. Much love to you. If you enjoyed this podcast episode and you never have actually gone and left me a podcast episode review, would you do that? Would you go to the podcast, place and do the podcasty thing and just leave me a review? I would love to get that number up to over 2,000 reviews. And, but more than anything, I just appreciate you listening. I appreciate you being here today. And I love you, and I'm rooting for you. We'll see you next week. But I cry at weird times, especially when I'm coaching women. Why is that? Who knows?